you know that feeling when you hear something and you're hooked straight away? The didgeridoo did that to me. Before, the didgeridoo for me wasn't more than a simple souvenir from Australia, but Xavier Rudd's concert fascinated me. Interestingly enough, even in Germany there's a hype around the didgeridoo. But why then don't I know more about it? What are the instrument's origins and why does it fascinate a lot of people? They even say it can change your whole life in a heartbeat. Isn't it only a long wooden tube? Instead of simply reading about it, I'm going on a journey to reveal the didgeridoo's secrets, to a country where they know all about it, Australia. First stop, Sydney. I don't see many Aborigines on the street, but I discovered their raised flag right next to the Australian one. And at the harbour, I meet the first didgeridoo player. Before diving deeper into Aboriginal culture, I decide to find out more about how didgeridoos are made. The Spirit Gallery in Sydney is said to be one of the best didgeridoo shops in Australia. They do not only sell regional products, but the best stuff from all over the country. Here they have it all, different forms, shapes, sizes, you name it. Reno has been working at the shop for 12 years.
Really, for me, the didgeridoo is an instrument of the northern Aboriginals, Arnhem Land, and what they say or what they believe is the one you should follow, not everybody else. Yeah? This art centre, Wukularingo, is the best place to contact. That's where a lot of the traditional instruments come from. So they're the best people. They'll give you the information straight from the traditional owners and makers. So that's the best people.
They didn't used to play the didgeridoo in all of Australia. Rather, it originates from the area north of Broome and Cape York. The Arnhem Land is said to be the didgeridoo's cradle, and it spread from there. Due to the fact that the north only had been colonized around 100 years ago, the culture around Yirrkala has been preserved best. Before the colonizers came, more than several hundred different tribes inhabited Australia, all of them having their own language, their own rituals, and therefore also their own style of music. In Arnhem Land, for example, they used to call the didgeridoo Yirrkala, and it sounded something like this. In northern Queensland, people played the Yiki Yiki. Today the didgeridoo can be found in all over Australia and is no longer exclusively produced by Aboriginal people.
This is like a classic, then you get the modern sort of polish, like a modern instrument, and the maker is putting like his brand on there. So it's not where, it's who. So you'll find a good maker up north and the average maker up north. Fine. So yeah, we don't go one place and say all the good makers are here. No, they're all over. You know, so you have to look for them. There's lots of didgeridoos made all over the world, Europe, USA, different techniques. That's fine, but the original spirit of the Australian didgeridoo is the termites eating out the eucalyptus. That's what we do.
The original Australian didgeridoo is almost exclusively made by nature. Termites feed on eucalyptus trees and hollow them out from the inside. These tree trunks then are used by the Aborigines to make didgeridoos out of them. The quality of the didgeridoo depends on how thoroughly the termites have done their work. The Aborigines then only add little details and the Aboriginal-made didgeridoo is finished. Only as they began using the didgeridoo for a more Western type of music, it became important for the instrument to be in tune. Therefore, producing a didgeridoo today is more work than it used to be. In other countries, didgeridoos are made by using materials such as carbon or fiber. Nowadays, it's even possible to change the instrument's key. But a lot of people think that these instruments have nothing to do with authentic didgeridoos. Jimmy sells only Aboriginal-made didgeridoos, the real deal.
to see Aboriginal people in Australia making money out of artifacts. This is called Aboriginal made. It's authentic as long as it's followed up by termite. Now, if an Aboriginal guy drill a piece of wood, it's called a piece of firewood. Like this is made by a black man or white man, shame on them.
One can find seemingly authentic and locally made didgeridoos in almost every souvenir shop. Totally different didgeridoos, totally different prices. But depending on whether you only want a souvenir or you really want a didgeridoo to play on, caution is necessary.
That's made by the white fella, that's made by the Aboriginal people. You can look at the inside. Big difference.
Yeah.
So the same wood, but the real one and the drill one, that's not exactly the same product. So that's what I'm against. It's legal in Australia to sell anything at any price, but you cannot misrepresent product. That means lying to the customer. Yeah, and what I do is unique, punch, blues, and didge. Like a didgeridoo, it's unique. Like a person like you and me, we are unique. I like unique things. I don't like mass production. I don't like to be part of a mass. If the fashion is doof, 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 I'll be blues yesterday, I'll be blues today, I'll be blues tomorrow. Tomorrow will be no more doof, 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 it'll be something else. So the doof, doof, doof will be gone. The blues is there forever. The didge been there before any other music in the world. It's the first instrument in the world. Let's keep it going as long as it can go. And I go with it.
What's authentic? What's too much processed to be authentic? Who gets the money and which instrument is worth how much? Which form and which material sounds best? After the conversation with Jimmy, these questions are still on my mind. But then again, isn't it most important to be able to play the didgeridoo well?
Lots of European players or the younger players, they play these middle to high because they're full of energy, strong, they like to do all that fancy stuff. And you'll find when some of the older players, they sort of go back towards the more relaxed, more easier ones. Okay. And it's the middle one which is better for a beginner. Easier. You put your lips all the way in there.
Yeah.
You gently, a bit more softer and looser. All the way in. That's it. That's it. That's it. You know, it was actually my idea because he said, "Can you leave it there? Get that first to listen. Why don't you just let it go? Better idea, so then you can hear the difference in your bars." So.
Wait.
It definitely looks easier than it is. No keys, no strings to pluck, no notes to read. Only lips, tongue and air. Even though Australia is full of didgeridoos and I keep on trying, it just doesn't sound that good when I try to play it. Only Trevor from Universal joined and his explanations seem to do the trick for me.
Then where are we going? We're going to dinner. Yeah. All right?
Nice.
So the religious and the continuous of didgeridoo playing is to teach people about energy system.
Yeah.
That if you do things in the front of yourself, the vibe is bad. The reason and the value of why it is the sound of Australia is because of the lips. The lips of the Australians Aborigines, that's my mother. My mother's Aborigine and my lip comes from my mother. My papa is a Scottish and his lip is here. And every time my father tries, he makes trumpets, saxophone, flutes. But to play a didgeridoo, I must told him, please roll your lip forward. Like you are sad, take a breath, together. But the lip must be with a hook. Because your mind is telling yourself to make a wind, it's called overblowing it.
Okay.
Instead of overblowing things, just resonate. In the Deutsch word, they say thoughts. Just a small thoughts. All right? It really does make a difference when you smile. And mother was right. Yeah, that's it, man. Yeah, that's a real deal. Yeah, congratulations, sister. Welcome to the club. Yeah, that's how you play a didgeridoo, mate.
To not being able to play certain didgeridoos is not just my personal inability. Depending on your lips, lung capacity and height, each and every didgeridoo will sound and react differently with your body. This fact makes the didgeridoo one of the most personal musical instruments. It simply sounds different each time, depending on who's playing it. Starting my own didgeridoo career sadly has to wait, due to the fact that in certain parts of Australia, women are forbidden to play the didgeridoo, let alone touch it. Being a German woman myself, I cannot really understand this rule. What about equal rights for men and women? Plenty of myths regarding the ban are to be found, but instead of enlightening me, they confuse me more. So I decide to find out the answers by myself. In the hinterland of Brisbane, the yearly Didgeridoo Bushcamp is held. Only men are allowed to participate in the workshops. Women, on the other hand, are allowed to be observers, but not allowed to play. Casey J, leader of the Didgeridoo Festival, explains this oddity to me. He has an indigenous background and cherishes the importance of traditions.
It's not that we don't believe in equal, because everyone's equal and everyone's got an equal opportunity. But when we do a ceremony with didgeridoo, it's always men. It's always been that way and will never change. But most of the didgeridoos from tradition, like the Jalu family, the boys went out and cut the didgeridoos, tuned them, all of them, make them into a beautiful instrument, and the women painted them. That's how it was in the old days. So they're still involved, but the only thing is that they didn't play them in ceremony, or didn't play them at all. So it's just pure men's business. So it's nothing with power or whatever.
The Aborigines simply don't challenge the traditional gender roles yet. There is men's business and women's business. To meddle in the other one's affairs is taboo. So, as the didgeridoo is man's business, women don't want to have to do anything with it. Although for them, equal rights and respects are prerequisites to be able to live together in a community. Additionally, not only people should be treated with respect, but nature and the land you're living on is also worthy to be treated equally.
That's how we see the land, like that. We don't own this land, that land owns us. That Rainbow Serpent, he paved that all for us. But with that too, he brought language too.
The Aborigines regard their stories, the land and the people living on it as interconnected. Obviously, their way of life didn't agree with the way of the white settlers, who simply wanted to make as much profit as possible out of the land as they could. The concept of preservation clashed with the concept of exploitation. Today, Aboriginal culture is still threatened. Only 2.7% of Australia's population is Indigenous, and not a lot is known about their way of life. It's not just me who is unfamiliar with their culture, but the other workshop participants also know next to nothing about it.
It's a culture we need to hang on to, and hopefully a school system will change that. That will be a core part of curriculum to actually teach correct Aboriginal history, not just a little snip here and there. Get rid of algebra, something that we're not going to use, put in actually something that has some substance and some meaning to this country, and understanding of what Aboriginal people have gone through over the last 230 years.
Australia, there's so many different cultures now. There's Indian, Chinese, Europeans, Americans, there's Asians, they're infiltrating into society. So it doesn't make any sense not to blend and learn from each other, respect each other's culture, and grow in a respectful way that we're proud to be Australians all together. It doesn't matter if you're black, yellow, white, green. There should be no difference.
Knowledge and understanding serve as a basis for showing respect towards the Aboriginal people and treating them as equals. The didgeridoo is one key to their world.
I think the didgeridoo naturally brings people closer to Aboriginal culture. I started playing and then wanted to go to the source, which is Arnhem Land. That's where it was traditionally played, which is only a small area in Australia, so it got me to that area, and so I started to connect deeper with Aboriginal culture that way. Women are taught how to play by the custodian of the Yirrkala or didgeridoo, Jalu Guruwiri. He believes that the more people that play, the more healing it is for the planet.
Jalu Guruwiri. The name keeps on popping up. Custodian of the didgeridoo guru. He of all people has to know the secrets of the didgeridoo, so finally I make my way to Arnhem Land. Cradle of the didgeridoo and at the same time Australia's biggest reservation. As a white person, you even need an official permit to get in there. I imagined the Aborigines' world to be intact here, but reality is very different. The communities consist of several old and run-down houses in which mine workers used to live. I stay in such a place too. In comparison to the other houses, mine is relatively clean. Instead of lively culture though, the reservation offers nothing much but a lot of boredom and litter. A lot was taken away from the Aborigines. Land, rights, culture, life. The Guruwiri family opened up to the world of the Balanda, the white people. They did it because they knew it was their only chance to keep their culture alive.
If we go across to that other world, we'll show the Balanda. We'll make a bridge and go across. And when this gonna happen? Very soon. Now I see Yirrkalas everywhere. People come join, become a member for Yirrkala in spirit, you know, in spirit.
For the people of the Yolngu, the didgeridoo played an important part in their ceremonies and dances. Today it also has become a mouthpiece and Chalu the hope of his people. As chieftain and therefore spokesperson of the tribe, he is also representative in the world of politics and their connection to the white Australia.
Brother, give me a second. That's Australia.
Not only Australians, but people from all over the world see in him the savior of a dying culture. His persona is subject of exhibitions, events, and costly film productions.
When I was small, I used to watch them. And I asked him question for Yirrkala, what's this? What are you always carrying with your shoulder? You go everywhere with that. And he said, daughter, this is Yirrkala, name Yirrkala, and I'll carry this Yirrkala as a symbol. This is our symbol for you all. And for the next generation, and the generation will keep passing through.
When I finally meet him in person, indeed it seems to me that the time has come for the next generation to continue Jalu's work. There is not much left of the energy and fascinating aura that made him a guru of the didgeridoo and the mouthpiece of his people. It is when he asks me how much money I'm going to pay him for allowing to film him that I realize the didgeridoo is not only a symbol representing their culture, but also a source of income. And when it comes to making money, it doesn't need to be as authentic or high quality. It's time for his son Larry to take the political responsibility out of his father's hands and continue his legacy. The yirrkala he can play as well as his old man.
Yirrkala is important for young people. It can make you better.
Yeah, just by playing or?
Just for playing. Make your spirit better, your mind. My dad is a doctor, healer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you want to be the same?
I want to be like my father.
Yeah. Chalu has already delegated a lot of tasks to other people, and Zelda supports him at important meetings. I can't help the feeling that it's really Zelda who wants to get their culture across, connect to and educate the non-Indigenous people of Australia. She's also the only one taking care of me, and the only one to never lose hope. Prince Charles' visit to Yirrkala some months ago, she sees as a first step in the right direction.
That's what is Yirrkala for, to help people. Yeah. Even our kings, even our bosses, big boss, they'll come. That's why it's called Sound of Australia. It's because Yirrkala comes from this country, bringing them to one unity. Any colour, any yuongo, from long way overseas and Australia, all over the world.
But even if white people come to learn to play the didgeridoo with Chalu or watch ceremonies, will that change the Aboriginal situation? Are we learning to understand them and their culture? Or does it just fuel our fascination for the exotic? Are they not rather just put on shows for others to watch, or can it really help to bring cultures together? I'm glad to leave the Guruvivi community. For me, it's an unfamiliar world I can't understand and where I never really know how to act. To try and understand better, I decided to visit Professor Dr. Aaron Korn. Over a period of 10 years, he had been living in the communities of Arnhem Land, where he explored the music and culture of the Aborigines. We meet at Adelaide University, where he's head of the Centre for Aboriginal Music Studies. What's his opinion on the development over the last years and the growing popularity of the didgeridoo?
I think there's been some very beneficial outcomes from people all over the world having an interest in Aboriginal music and culture through the didgeridoo. Bands like Emdee, but also others, were extremely important in seeding ideas about how Aboriginal people should be understood and treated. That really did, I think, affect policy directions later in that decade. So where were the lyrics coming from? They were coming from the local song tradition that's used in public ceremonies. And all the boys, teenage boys who started those bands in the late 60s and late 70s, grew up to become ceremonial leaders. They all grew up to lead ceremonies. So they were both, local, regional, and in some cases national and international rock stars and ritual leaders. And both of those things blended together. That's how Yirrkala came about, and all the local bands within the region around it.
Combining their culture with Western music is what made Yirrkala world famous and let them gain political power as well. Today, bands from the Arnhem Land, like Berra, Larry Guruvivi's group, try to do this as well.
Rather than having, 60 plus clans, each with, dozens of singers each, which you would have seen, right up until early last decade. Now the knowledge of how to sing multiple clan repertoires is funneling down to a much smaller number of inheritors. And that's kind of the scary bit.
There are only a few young Aborigines that take an interest in their culture today. The Centre for Aboriginal Music Studies therefore tries to promote the Aboriginal language and music to counteract this development. A young Aborigine like Damon from Didgeridoo Bushcamp, knowing and telling a lot of stories in Songline, is an exception in today's time. During Ganga Giri's gig at the Bushcamp, Damon spontaneously breaks out into song and mixes the traditional lyrics with modern beats. Ganga has been doing collaborations like this before and proves that the mix works. Not all white didgeridoo players are immersed in Aboriginal culture. Some of them simply regard the didgeridoo as a musical instrument and don't know anything about its history. Musician Emdee from Northern Australia had to fight for gaining the Aborigines' recognition as a didgeridoo player. Now he himself is running workshops in the communities. He doesn't try to lift the culture, but to promote cultural exchange.
A lot of people come up to Darwin and they will learn how to play this and how to play that song, but they don't understand the true reality of the living side of it. To be able to learn to play that song, you've got to know why you're playing that song. So for me, I play all my own songs. I don't dabble in the Indigenous cultural music, and I have full respect for that through all the elders. They do ask me, why did I learn this, learn that? Why? And I'm like, no, I'm white skin. You're black skin, but together we play the same.
The so-called contemporary or aeroplane style developed in the 90s. Emdee then was one of the first whites to play the didge on stage. Now he's one of the fastest players.
That's one of my slow rhythms.
The didgeridoo still is one of the most fascinating instruments, even if you disregard its sacred meaning and the ceremonies it has been used for in the past. Emdee and his shows prove the point.
It's creating a lot of, opening up a lot of people's thought patterns when they hear it, because the power of it, the way it works with your chakras and thing really opens up people's minds. So that whole process of what this does and what it creates and how it reacts with you, it has the power of that. So it's a very strong instrument, if you call it an instrument. Or is it a magic stick, or is it a healing stick? Just playing it alone for any person, once you get into that hypnotic zone of circular breathing and hearing the tones flow right and it all just slips into place, suddenly you're gone, you're with it.
For me, one piece of the puzzle is still missing. Even though a lot of people have told me about their fascination with the didgeridoo, its life-changing effects I need to try for myself. Therefore, I need my own didgeridoo. So back to my first stop on this trip and trying out the instruments. And just as if it was a real magic stick, I don't choose the didge, but it chooses me. Tone, looks, and even if that sounds a bit esoteric, its energy fit me. With this, my trip to Australia is coming to an end, but my search for the mysteries and fascination of the didgeridoo has only just begun.